All right, welcome to the Fed Up Podcast. I'm Ryan with Jordan over here. What's up, Jordan?
My man.
Today we're going to be talking about significance. So I wanted to start this podcast with why we wanted to start with significance. It's such an important topic that is so broad and vast that it's hard even really diving into. But
Yeah.
wanted to begin with where we're at and how it looks like things are going right now with, I know I can speak for myself, but the people around me, my small world, the world that I see outside of me, it's just like, it looks like people are struggling so hard. And to me, it stems with this idea of people forgetting who they are in a sense of like what they can bring to the world.
Yeah.
And not owning that, where it's like you have people that just check the heck out all the time, they just check out, where it's Facebook or Netflix or whatever it is, and it's so easy just to constantly be running for that dopamine hit that we are just bathing in right now. And so this is I guess a call to what do we need to do in order to grab the other side, right? Because it's everything's in balance in life. And right now, I feel like the scale is tipped towards where people are looking at almost like their insignificance, where it's, who am I? What can I do? I feel so helpless in this world. I can't even change myself, let alone the relationships in my life. Compared to this idea of like, you know what? There is something in me that is powerful, that is unique and real. And it just seems like that is something that is really seldomly found. and it's a matter of like, so what do we need to do that? I mean, this is part of us doing it right now, right? We're just like being real and trying to talk about this kind of stuff, not because we're some gurus or two enlightened souls, but more of two people on the path, just like anyone else. But it's a matter of, our world right now seems like we are struggling so hard to find what it means to own our own life and what that significance for ourselves even means. And I realize we're talking really individually in this sense. And it's a matter of what, and I guess that's where I want to start with it. So what does that even look like? Right? Well, what does it even look like when we start to talk about like what is the self? Who am I? Like it's so broad and hard, but it's like where you have to start. Like we're so scared to ask ourselves those questions that like it's easy to have something else tell us. You go to church and you're told who you are and blah blah blah, but like do you really know? Like who are you? What's you? What's not you? What are all these words when you think of the ego, the mind, the soul, the psyche, the archetypes that Jung's talking about in his psychology? There's so many things that are like telling us who's us, who's not us.
Yeah.
So let's begin with that, Jordan. So what does it mean when you think of yourself and you're like, who is Jordan Cruz? Who is that dude right now?
You don't want to know. Well, not to minimize or negate everything you said, but this is probably going to be a super awkward conversation because I think significance is incredibly obvious, and I think it's really easy to attain. And it's probably going to be boring because, I think everyone's got it figured out. And there's no puzzle. I think everyone's living very purposeful, intentional, selfless lives. Except for not. I love your deer in the headlights look. You're like, what the fuck did you just say?
I get where you're going.
No, but just hearing you say all that, I'm like, I feel like the last person in the world who should be talking about significance is, as I said last weekend, I feel like the cover model of like Broken Boy magazine, because being 32 years old, being here is a byproduct of my inability to truly define what significance is. And when I think about significance, all I feel is insignificance.
But that's it.
And I think what's beautiful about that though is recognizing when you understand how insignificant you feel, and the key here being your capacity to be honest about that, it allows you to do what you just asked me, to start with, why do you feel so insignificant?
Yeah.
You know, you can sugarcoat and you can create all of these false manifestations of significance through all the social media outlets and all the pretend masks you put on. But to negate my humor, like, I honestly, like, if I'm completely transparent, like, I see next to zero significance in terms of human beings manifesting significance. I see attempts, I see some level of desire to do things that have meaning in them. But one of the most powerful quotes I ever heard or read was from Carl Jung, and he talked about how, and the dude is like the most fucking OG gangster of the mind and understanding who we are as individuals.
Sure.
Physically and metaphysically, you know, in these skin suits that we have and our souls inside of these. He said that there's no action that we take, there's no conscious action we take that is void of self. Meaning, there's always, no matter what you do, no matter what you decide to create in your life, there's going to be a selfish motive to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something really hard for people to understand, especially religious people, because they believe, like, just this, to become this selfless, you know, Mother Teresa, this entity of selflessness, like forgetting even who you are. Like it's bullshit. Like, because, like, you will always be, to some degree, looking out for your own self-interest.
Sure.
And most of the time, like, doing things that look selfless, they're done because you're selfishly wanting to be perceived as selfless.
Yeah.
So,
but it's kind of built on that, right? Like, you think of Christianity, what it is, or like most religions, you're coming as a soul detached from God, trying to get back into the good graces that you've been separated from, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it stems from that, where it's like you're this soul, where you're trying to be selfless by, you know, accepting God's grace.
Yep.
But I mean, what does that mean for you when you ask yourself, are you a soul? Are you sitting here right now? Like, what is a soul?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is, so from that information, how I translated it is, okay, recognize that I will not be able to separate my selfish bastardness from every decision I make. So it's like, okay, how do I create the best case scenarios? How do I create scenarios and decisions in life that have the least amount of selfishness in it? And is there a degree of selfishness that is healthy?
Yeah.
You know, it's the most misunderstood thing, is how to be self-preserving and focusing on self-development, but not looking at that as a negative selfish thing. You know, and as you and I both have a brutally drinking from the fire hose of Jesus background, like, one of the most misunderstood things, and I think the foundation of Christianity and why it's become so convoluted is Jesus was trying to very eloquently and simplistically say, like, here's the deal. Like, if you want to understand why I'm here and you want to understand, like, the whole point of what I'm doing, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind, with all your strength. So it's like learning how to pursue and contextualize a relationship with God, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that means. You know what I mean? But from that, he said, and love your neighbor as yourself. Like, this sums up everything. So what I think creates such complexity within religion and significance is loving your neighbor as yourself. So it's, how do you love yourself? So you have no business loving anyone until you know how to love yourself.
Yeah.
So there's this inverted puzzle, this mind puzzle that it's like every Christian that I have experienced anything spiritual with, there's this degree of, I don't care about knowing myself. I care about projecting a false self to be perceived as this holier than thou thing. But what I have come to understand, what has really freed me from that bondage of thinking of needing to be something I'm not in order to get what I want, is if until you know who you are, until you know fundamentally what creates significance within yourself, you're going to be seeking it in synthetic ways. You're going to be putting on masks, trying to become different things, and you're essentially juggling for everyone every day in this soul-sucking circus that life is. And the most interesting thing about significance is, and this is the saddest part of human beings being so splintered and not having that human race family aspect to us, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of anything. It's the reason why it's so splintered is because we think about significance from a subjective me, I
Yeah.
standpoint. It's not how can we become significant as a human family? It's how do I get up on that stage and scream loud enough to be heard and acknowledged? And the irony is, I think the most significant thing you can do is to connect to others and do things and pursue things and manifest realities that are a connected group think of energy creating something.
Sure.
You know, when it becomes just about the self and it becomes disconnected from the group, you inevitably will suffocate because it becomes all about you.
Yeah.
You know, so there's significance, there's the duality of how do I manifest who I am? Because there's never going to be another you. There never has been a you, Ryan.
As far as we know. That's right, yeah.
Well, no, in all seriousness,
Yeah,
there's never going to be the complexity that makes you you. There's never going to be another one of you.
Sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So in that family aspect, like in the bookends of life, like how do you manifest the uniqueness that you are to contribute to that family? So it's this, how do you manifest fully who you are, and how do you manifest fully your role and your responsibility as a member of the family? You know what I mean? And like we talked about this week, it's like the liver having a function in the body specifically that doesn't have anything to do with the kidney or anything, but it's like all these things within our body that make us healthy, quote unquote. It's like, how do each one of those functions within the body function at the highest level that they can to ensure that the body is healthy in the skin suit?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think there is a parallel there to, you're a kidney, I'm probably some undigested, disgusting thing trying to be pushed out of the body, which hasn't happened yet because I'm still alive. You know what I mean? So not to say that I'm some fecal matter, but it feels like it at times. But if that's my role, I'll do it.
Sure.
And you just got to push me out, bro.
Well, I wanted to read you something by Ram Dass I read the
Please.
other day.
Yes.
So he said that true awakening is the moment when you realize you are in prison, the moment you realize that there are other ways of looking at it all. So I wonder, when it comes to looking at ourself, and you're doing that, it's just this realization of what is the self, you know? And he goes into diving about how you get rid of a lot of this ego that we build. And that's a big part of it, right? Because I feel like a big part of spirituality and religious spirituality is you don't realize how much egotistical it is. You're trying to say it's not there when it's there and it's blinding you. And that's the hard part, because you don't realize that you might be believing something for some tainted reason. And if it's true, then you're never going to have real, authentic faith in whoever you're in. It's always going to be built around some insecurity or whatever. So when it comes to trying to think about yourself and looking at that, I still think that there comes a moment when you're on your path and you step into that boldness that we talk about all the time of like, who is Ryan? Why should I love this dude? Why? Like, what's me? What's not me? I say, like, I do this for work. Is that me? Am I an iron worker? You know, I'm a husband. I love my wife. You know, I do all these things, and I'm trying to decide, like, so what is that? Who is this dude, right? Because I think there is part of it where there's a balance of, like, you know what? There is this individual person sitting in front of you, right? But I'm also so much bigger than that, where it's like you get down to the molecular level, and it tells you how much of a part of everything else we are. And I feel like that's in our Western culture position that we're in. It's so individualistic. Like, we're each going to get in our car and drive out of here. That's like the best representation of what it is. We each have our little boxes, and we just get pissed off at the other people in their little boxes, and we forget how much of a part, like, we each function to keep this city going. right? And that's part of what we are too.
Yeah.
Like we're the city as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I think, trying to ask yourself, so who is Jordan? Who is Ryan? Well, we're two dudes separated right now, but we can also learn to tap into the true essence of what love is in a way of connecting to that bigger thing, to that part where we're not different. Yeah. We're the same. We're part of the same thing. You and me, we're a part of the universe. We are the universe, right? And it sounds so hippie and blah blah, but it's
scientifically we are.
Yeah. But it's something that's speaking and crying out to us left and right. And I feel like that's a big part of our suffering here. It's so individualistic, where it's so about me and like my self-care and how egotistical that can be. Where you also have to remember, like, it's about you, but you have to realize that like you is also the other people around you, right? Yep. I mean, that's a big part of you too. Yep. I mean, and it's something where it's just, it's missed out here.
Taking that ownership of recognizing like who I am and what I do is not a separate entity. Like what I do, whether I like it or not, is directly affecting, X amount of people. And that level of ownership that I think you're trying to put structure to verbally, like it's a massive thing it's negated. It's not even talked about or discussed with understanding individually, how do I find significance? And I think what I'm hearing you say is like, it has to be sought in that group familial dynamic. And the reason why you feel isolated and so lost as an individual is because you forgot that you're not. You're a part of the family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that orphaned mindset.
Yeah.
Where it's like, sweet baby Jesus, like, where's mommy? Where's daddy? Mm-hmm. Like, brother, sister? It's like, there's that scared little boy in both of us that's wanting to find like that brother to like fucking wrestle with in the mud emotionally. And I feel like that's what we're doing now, is like there's that child in us that we forgot how to be. Like we forgot how to have the innocence of a child and that freedom to not be suffocated by the things we now as adult grown-ass men are suffocated by. It's like you and I are entering back into like that mud wrestling ring, you know what I mean? It's like we want to fight not each other, unless you want to fucking go. We'll fucking go right now. You know what I mean? Which the next episode will just be a mud wrestling. So just stay tuned. No, seriously. To the death. So tune in. No, but in all seriousness, I think this is part of an innocence that is driving this conversation. Is like, we're like, bro, like, where the fuck did our G.I. Joes go? How do we get back to recess and become free in our minds? Like, and just fantasize about like, dude, Friday sleepover, you know what I mean? Like we're going to, eat 23 pounds of Doritos and open up all the Starbursts and make them into big balls and throw them at each other, and then we'll choke on them. You know what I mean? It's like the simplicity of a child's mind and what we see in our children, and that's what we're doing now, is like, we're wanting to fight for and set up a structure so that our children can see two grown-ass men who didn't forget how to be kids. You know what I mean? Because there's the simplicity of a child, I think, to bring back to what you were saying, is like, if a child grows up in an environment where there is security and there's a supported empowerment for that child to just be a child, there's safety, there's security. They're saying, I am a part of a family. Mm-hmm. My mom and my dad, or my mom and my mom, or my dad and my dad. It's like whatever combination of maternal love that is facilitated in your life. If you trust that, you feel free. You feel like you're a part of a family. But when we grow up, we're living in this orphaned mindset.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, we're basically like, it's a mud wrestling jiu-jitsu 101 is what we're doing right now. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
But I can only say, like, I don't want to avoid the initial questions. Like, you're like, Jordan, where do you find significance? Blah, blah, blah. I think I'm honest enough to say I have no idea how to find it, because I don't have those memories as a little boy of feeling that freedom. Like, I remember feeling so insecure and so scared as a little guy. And the reason why my emotional intelligence is so up on the upward spectrum, I don't want to say that arrogantly, but it's like, no, I wasn't born genetically with a high emotional IQ. Like, I fucking had to learn how to read people to survive situations emotionally. And so an individual is seeking significance. And what's so hard for us to connect to each other on each other's paths to seeking significance is your story and my story are totally different. So by default, for me to tell you how to find significance, it's going to be filtered through your subjective life experience. So, and that's what's so hard is through religion, all these other things, is we tell each other and we project, here's the path, here's the map. If you don't do this and you don't find significance through this medium of spirituality, then you're lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a really sad thing. And ironically, I don't want to, but I feel like I need to. I need to read this poem.
Yeah, that got cut out of the last episode.
And I was so fucking pumped that it did.
Were you? Oh man, I was pissed trying to figure out how to get it back in, but with our video camcorder died.
It's the most humbling, intimate poem I've ever written, and the most honest one. But it's a reflection of where I came from, and just to have more transparency. So I'll read it real quick. It's called Hero. This sucks.
Dude, you got it. You got it.
3 years old, fueled by one thing, the insatiable desire to relentlessly study and mirror everything my hero exuded. 13 years old. My hero is utterly different than the ones in my comic books. I've watched his alter ego for years now. It's flawless. No one knows his true identity except for me. He never shows a glimpse of weakness when he's surrounded by all the people he's saving, quote unquote. Everyone looks at him in awe as he performs his superhuman acts of chivalry. I watched him from a distance as he offers the crowd his trademark smile, non-verbally assuring them, "Don't worry, I'll always be here in your time of need to protect you from all harm." His smile could heal and calm anyone's fear or anxiety instantly. My hero. I wish I could be like my hero. 18 years old. I did it. I became a mirror image of my superhero. 130-something pounds. Dying on a hospital bed, looking at my hero. The doctor told my mom and my hero that my heart was stopping because of the toll my eating disorder has taken on my body. I was starving to death. I was starving for love. Love from my hero. Why did he hate me? Was it because I was so stupid and so different than my siblings? It doesn't matter. What matters is I became like my hero, an addict, slowly killing myself for the most noble of pursuits, dying for the one cause that fuels mankind, the pursuit of answering the only question that fuels us. Am I significant? Am I worth being loved? No. I couldn't risk receiving love. My hero hated himself. He was drowning in self-loathing, and instead of reaching for a life preserver, he grasped me with his iron grip and pulled me down as we drowned together, gasping for air. I haven't seen my hero in years. His abuse almost killed me. I have cancer now. Maybe it came to finish what he started. Don't worry. I'm a loyal sidekick. Your secret identity is safe with me. I'll take it to my grave. All that matters is everyone will only see one thing when they gaze at you. They'll see my hero. Well, cool.
Damn, dude. I love it. I love that you can be that open to share stuff like that.
Well, it's the not to just push it aside real quick, but the only reason I'm reading that is because that relationship is what made that little boy forget how to mud wrestle. And that's my contest and my framework for the lack of significance my life has had. And recognizing, like you said, am I an iron worker? Am I a father? Am I a husband? Am I all these things that structurally I've built in my life? Or is there a spirit conscious self behind all of those masks that we wear? Because we're in this circus juggling for each other. And I'm only saying those things to give context to my lack of understanding of what significance is and my insatiable desire to figure out what that means.
That's right.
So I recognize that I wrote that from a place of like pride and like fuck you and like anger and rage. But like since writing that, I called my father and I I told him over the phone, like, I need you to know that I forgive you. And I need you to know that as much as I'm able to even understand what love is, I want to extend that to you because I'm compassionate to your journey and your lack of understanding of what significance is. And as a grown-ass man, I take ownership of the fact that I am who I am because of the lack of significance that you instilled in me.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now, Ryan, if he didn't rob me of my mud wrestling childhood.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha.
So in a fucked up way, I'm infinitely grateful to him. I really am. I really am. And I recognize that has fueled me to be sitting here with you now. So to pass it back to you, like for you personally, because I want to hear from you, like subjectively as an individual, separate from the family of humanity, like what is it that drives you when you wake up and when you go to bed, between those two moments in time each day, like what drives your pursuit of significance and where have you found it mostly?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of go where I was thinking. I think it ties into purpose, dude. And that's kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about is trying to figure out significance. Is purpose is attached to that, meaning is attached to that, right? It seems like it's like what Tony Robbins says. It's like everybody needs to have their purpose or some meaning to it, right? But there's a huge but with that. The scary part is your purpose. Like if you attach your purpose, like if my purpose is to be a good dad, that seems kind of a scary thing to say.
Yeah.
I mean, is that my purpose on this planet, to be a good dad? I want to be a good dad. I love my kids to death. I want nothing more to be a good dad. But is that my purpose? Is my purpose to be a good husband? Is my purpose to be, the best iron worker in Portland?
Yeah.
Is it like it's so easy to go down that road. So to go back to what you said, when I go back to me and when I get up in the morning and I'm thinking about, getting ready for work or whatever it is, it goes back to, I guess that question of like, what's all this for? You know what I mean? You're getting up in the morning with what? And to me, it's really just kind of all come back to, you know what? I don't know what this life is. I've been given this person who I can control my body. I can feel my feelings. I've been born Ryan. I've lived his life. I'm trying to do the best I can. And I think that's part of it, right? Because all I want to do, and I feel like this is all that we can really do, is figure out what does it mean to be you and to live that fully. How do you grasp this reality that you find yourself in? How do you fight to figure out what's real and true in a way where, like, in part of doing that, you learn all these truths like we're talking about. Yeah. You learn that, like, man, it's a lot better to give than receive, right? It sounds you hear it all the time, but it's true. You hoard all that shit for yourself, it ruins you.
Yeah.
You want power, you want to feel beautiful, it ruins you. If that's your purpose in life, it ruins you. Yeah. The only thing that you really can do is figure out, what does it mean to be Ryan? What does that mean? How do I figure out how to be Ryan enough where I can be Ryan to my family, that dude who's coming in, healing the mess I've made with my wife, helping be a good father to my kids, helping being a son that shows that he loves his dad and brother. Yeah. Because that's what it's about, dude. And it comes back to that. And I just think with trying to look at purpose, it's so easy. There's so many things crying out like, hey, this should be your purpose. My purpose for a long time was the truth needs to be Jesus. Yeah. And I think there's part of that that's completely true and real, but there's also part of it that was, I couldn't understand where I was coming from, right? Yeah. I'm sitting here just trying to do that same thing I'm talking about, trying to do me in the real way with what I've been given. And what I was given was Jesus, and he was true, and how much he's affected my life, and how, I wanted to teach that and help other people find the love that I found with that dude. Yeah. Because it's a powerful love. The gospel message, regardless if you see it as true or not, is a powerful message of a God doing something like that, right? But not realizing that it was tainted because of the fear that I had about this thing that I believed in. Yeah. Right? Because if that's not true, good Lord, right?
Yeah.
Or the fear of like, I don't want to go to hell, or how
Yeah.
many fears are attached to that?
Yep.
You know, so it goes back to, like how do I learn to see myself, to try to live Ryan's life fully? How do I become that? And it's part of like, the only way you can really do it is kind of going back to square one.
Yeah.
I think like everybody, like, I don't know how you can do it otherwise. It's part of what you're talking about. There's so many hangups where it's like, you have to go back and ask yourself, what does it mean to be able to be sitting here right now, consciously thinking, who's this person talking into the microphone?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? Because to find significance in self, like I was talking about last week, is like you have to understand the spectrums of any topic you're talking about in order to find the diagnosis of what the truth is in terms of like dark and light, like understanding both ends of that. So for significance, the obvious other end of that yin and yang is insignificance. So what do you think are one, not to put you on a very uncomfortable pedestal to communicate, but
we're not here for comfort.
Yeah, I know, but fuck it. I'll just ask it. What do you think are one of, or however many you want to share, like what are the main things that cripple you from manifesting significance in terms of like your energy distribution every day? Like, because like you said, you're like, I'm awake and I am a conscious being interacting with other beings. And I think to understand what your understanding of significance is to understand why you do what you do and why you distribute energy and where you distribute it and the reasoning behind that.
Sure.
You know, because it's either you're going to give energy here to either take something, it's transactional, or you're going to give. And I think what you and I are doing is I think the highest enlightened level of being can manifest in terms of like you and I are here purely to give of ourselves, to offer up a conversation, to create community, and fight against the infinite ongoing cancer of culture of the isolated mind feeling like they're alone and they don't have a family. And you and I are trying to give here. So in terms of your energy distribution every day, like being significant or insignificant, what are your biggest hang-ups? What are your biggest insecurities? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, man. No, I mean, the beautiful thing about what I do is it exposes those insecurities real fast. Yeah. It's dangerous, risky, hard being an iron worker and doing what we do. When you rig something with a tower crane, as you know, and you send it up into the air. It's like, oh, I really hope I did a good job. That's not going to crush some car or some person that I'm flying it up to, right? But with me, it goes back to realizing I am a horrible judge sometimes of what I believe is true and what I believe is a lie. Yeah. It goes back to that because there's so many times where I have to go back and realize that like, whoa, how did I just get so angry right there, right? And like, what is that showing, right? And going back to like, oh.
Because obviously it's justified.
But it goes back to like, oh, there's some lie that's hooked in there that like, I believe that person shouldn't have just cut me off right now. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Or whatever it is. Yeah. Or, you know, when Brittany does something that I don't agree with, it goes back to this like, oh, she shouldn't have done, or whatever it is. It's just realizing that I am a really poor judge a lot of the time of what's going on in here. What little cogs are driving the reaction, because some of those cogs are jacked up and they need to be replaced. Yeah. Because they're showing me that by my reaction or whatever it is. So it's realizing that there's a lot of things in me, a lot of these bad beliefs that are still in there, that are constantly needing to be worked out, that are constantly needing that light shining on them. By going back to like what we're talking about with like what is true, what is really the thing that I believe? What is the overall big one compared to all these little lies that I put the magnifying glass on at the time, where it's like, that person shouldn't have treated me like that. You know, you bastard. Like, I'm gonna freak out on you now. I mean, it's so easy to do.
I think that's a really important thing that's beautiful that you're so honest about it. But I think to open that wound a little more and pour a little more salt in there, but like what What do you think makes you so angry in those moments? Because your value is getting questioned. Because if that person knew who I was when I was in traffic, they would have got out of their car and like they would have had like a snow cone to hand to me as I was driving by, just to thank me for being me.
Sure.
You know, like what is it makes you so angry?
I'll get deep with you on this topic. Let's get real deep. We'll go to the deep end. We'll go in the deep end of the swimming pool. Hope. Hope is what makes me so angry. I can be so full of hope that I drown in seeing the fact that this is not the reality. My hope is not the reality. Just like, yeah, I know this person could be a lot better in this moment. I know he could be better, but he's not. And instead of accepting it for the shitty act that just happened to me, I look at it and be like, this fucker shouldn't be doing this shit, right? Yeah. And it's like that. It's blinded by hope, and that's the problem. Heavy. Sometimes that it's just like it's what the way I want to see it, the way I feel like it should be, is projected upon the reality, and there's the disconnect. And the disconnect is the anger. The anger is saying, hey, this is not right. This is unjustified. This shouldn't be this way. It's me saying, I know. And it's going back to be like, no, man, you don't know. Because if you did know, you'd understand that dude freaked out on you or cut you off because he's having a horrible day, his kid's sick in the hospital, or whatever it is. If you could see that, it would easily, your emotion would just fade away, because you'd be like, oh, dude, I get that now.
You'd be compassionate.
Because, that's the problem. We're blinded by hope. And I am blinded by hope every day when it comes to stuff like this, especially at work, because like I know, we are not around people that are even close to caring or even putting on that facade. Yeah. Like, at least when you're in an office, you have an HR department, you'd be like, hey, Tim was really, he was a dick to me yesterday. Security, when you're in construction, you're like worried some dude's going to meet you in the parking lot to beat your ass when you screw up.
Yeah, literally. Literally. It's so heavy, man. I love that transparency and honesty. So to a degree, having the hope is your Achilles heel. So is the other end of that hopelessness. So you need to hurry up and get fucking ready to be disappointed. That's ultimately, it's like, so how do you in a beautiful way help your mind not expect to be disappointed, but how do you get hopeless, but in a positive way?
Dude, and I think it just goes back to like what I said with Ram Dass. The awakening moment is just trying to realize the reality that's in front of you. Yeah. Like, let go of what I want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just is. Like, that dude's going to freak out. That's where he's at right now, man. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't need to judge this person. Yeah. Back away from the judging. Yeah. That's the thing. We're like, this is good, that's bad. Okay, maybe that's not helping us at this point. Yeah. The point is, it's like, I want to see it for what it is, because that's the only way it's ever going to get better. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, my intentions are blinding me. And it's just being like, you know what? It's just, no. I want to see it for what it is. I want to see the people around me for who they are, and not who I want them to be, or the stupid judge that's in me telling they should or shouldn't be this way. Yeah. You know what I mean? The only thing I want to look at someone and be like, man, and see when people are drowning, in a sense that they're living a life that is harming them in a lot of ways. It's not that they're a bad person. It's just, man, they're stuck like everyone else. We're stuck. We're sitting here talking about how we're stuck still. Yeah. It's not like we're talking about like we're completely free. No. And that's part of it, dude. And that's part of figuring out, is just realizing that part of this life is just trying to, there's a great term that I heard when we went to this pancake breakfast in Washington, D.C. with the president and stuff. There was this one guy who spoke. He was hilarious. I can't remember. The only thing I remember is he constantly talked about, you have to get in your perspective helicopter in life. And to me, it's just this mental image that stuck with me, that like, there are just constant moments that we need to just look at our life from above and just try to get that whole perspective. Because the more you can do that, the more you're going to be free from that stupid crap that we get caught up in. Yeah. The anger, whatever it is. Because you can see it, and then it's just, you realize like, oh, that's how I'm free to love and care about people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And I think that's what I was alluding to last week, when my perception of that helicopter analogy, when I get up in my metaphorical helicopter and I look down, I realize that the only way I have found peace in life is learning to accept what is and not preemptively expect things to be different. And I think that was the scariest realization for me, is like, religion gave me this this preconceived idea of how it's supposed to be, and these ideals that other people are supposed to be living by, and in their pursuit of significance and purpose. And when they fell short of that, it's like I was fucking RoboCop all over them in my mind, and wanted to fucking destroy them and bring justice to everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is to take off the RoboCop armor and have the humility to recognize it. You know what? If that person that hurt me or offended me, if I was them experiencing their life experience, I'd probably be doing the same thing, and I'd probably have the same rage. And I think that level of compassion is the only gate key to a life of peace, that you can actually have meaning and purpose and significance in. Because as soon as you let go of as soon as you let go of the need for things to be different than they are, you'll actually be at peace with the way things are.
Yeah.
You know, with your marriage, dynamic with your kids, dynamic or lack thereof with your blood family. You know, it's like, just see people for who they are, and seek to extend compassion, and not seek to extend the RoboCop justice. Dropping the hammer on, being like, you need to be better than you are. When it's like, and that's one of my favorite quotes, as I told you, is like from Carl Jung and Alan Watts conversation I heard, is they talked about, Alan Watts was discussing his experience with Jung, and he said, when he was with Jung, he felt as if he was in the presence of someone who was so brutally enlightened, because Jung discussed understanding that when you seek judgment and ridicule in someone else, it's only because, to the same degree, that thing you hate in someone else, you too are dealing with that inside of yourself.
Sure, yeah.
And the reason why you're getting so worked up with someone's impatience or judgment or whatever experience you're experiencing with someone, with your wife, a coworker, when you get worked up and you judge someone, it's because that thing that you're hating is still inside of you, and you're blind to it. And that's why you're void of peace, is because you're not honest about how you're still so broken. You know what I mean?
It's so true. Oh, here, it's funny. It made me think of this quote that I wrote.
Please.
It's from, I think it's from Jim Morrison. I found it on.
Well, then it is, no matter what.
So it's, Jim Morrison says, people are afraid of themselves, of their own reality, their feelings most of all. People talk about how great love is, but that's bullshit. Love hurts. Feelings are disturbing. People are taught that pain is evil and dangerous. How can they deal with love if they're afraid to feel? Pain is meant to wake us up.
Such a gangster. It's so good.
But it doesn't that, it hit on a lot of like what you're talking. It's just we are so afraid of ourselves, man. It's like, dude, but like, it's part of trying to talk, like, trying to understand our own significance. Like, if we can't look at ourselves, if we cannot take the journey inward, we are done, dude. Like, we are building a world of just destruction for souls.
Yeah.
It's just the way, as it is. We're like borderline cyborgs as it is with our phones all the time. Pretty soon it's just going to be either in us or on us. Yeah. And it's like we're heading towards that path. So it's like, is it possible for us to come back and realize like who we are and like what's really important? Like even like what does this all mean? Yeah. And it sounds so broad, but I feel like unless we're able to look inward, and I think it was Terence McKenna who said that. It's like, we're so easy to like, look down and to find the atom, or to head to the moon and search the stars that are outside of us. But we're so scared to look inside because that's where all the contradictions flow. Yeah. And we're terrified. Yeah. And that's part of it. Just like, dude, like, why? Like, what's so scary about it? What is so scary about it? And if you realize how necessary it is, you're not gonna care how scary it is. It's something you have to do. You'll find the bravery. You won't find it when you're constantly believing a lie, where you believe that Coke is opening happiness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something where it's just like, that's what I want to drive home with this, where it's like, listen, you can talk about all these things that you want to bring you satisfaction in life. You will never have it unless you're able to take the journey inward. Yeah. You will never have it. You will never ever have it. I don't care what antidepressants, how many things that you can find to just numb you out, how many movies you want to see, whatever the next kick is to make you feel good momentarily, because we have grown to be completely spiritually immature. And what we're talking about is like there is a level of spiritual maturity that has to happen, to the sense of like we're playing the long game, not the short game. You know, we're not just going to be instantly gratifying ourselves to death. We're going to play the long game, because the long game is the life game.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. That's what I want for my kids, man. That's part of like doing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
Is like, I'm scared to death looking at the world they're going in.
Why?
Giving them a phone. Yeah. Right? And like, it's just like the way kids are and what they're going to be tapped into. Dude, I mean, I was hooked into those things. I was hooked into video games and porn and all that crap it was something that was just so instantly gratifying. That is just this immense drug that like we're looking at now going like, dude, this is something I don't even know what to deal with, right? Yeah. Where that's what I mean. The dopamine drowning is like, we have to realize that it's dangerous territory. It's soul-killing territory. Yeah. And not to be the one just going on some rant here, but I mean, it's important. That's part of what we're talking about here. And it's not that like I want to tell you this and that what it takes. It's a part of just being okay with saying I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Well, it's recognizing all the subjective cancers you have in your emotional soul body, and the reasoning why you can't just look at the symptoms and the things that are killing you. What matters infinitely more is, why are you putting those Band-Aids on your soul? Why are you running away? Why are you trying to escape? And I think the real triggered word is, or two words is, and this is why there's so little progression within the individual spiritual self, is because America, their antidote to all of this is, we'll just, create the 3 billion industry of self-help. And the fucking irony of self-help is, the premise of it is, you don't want to fucking know who you are. You don't want to help yourself. You want to go read a book someone else wrote to help you. You want to lean on someone else. You don't want to sit down with yourself and be quiet. Yeah. You want to go read someone's recipe for finding significance. And one of my favorite quotes from Jordan Peterson is, he talks about, if you want to understand who you are and how to get to the heart of what is creating chaos, it's like if you went into your room quietly and sat on your bed just for a little bit and waited to find those answers and listened to why things are the way they are, he's like, you would be terrified at the information that would start downloading. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's so true, is because the irony is, to know ourselves, our antidote is, I'm going to go get a self-help book and get lost in someone else's, it's like, as subjectively unique as each and every one of us is, you and I will only find the true self within ourselves alone, through journaling or meditation or the quiet state of just listening to what is chaotic up top, but it's just so funny to me, just thinking about this week, is like, our whole pursuit of helping self is, I'll do it as long as I don't have to do it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you'll even then, it's like you only get to a point. It's like, we don't really want to know ourselves. We don't really want to help ourselves. We want to just be functioning. We want to pursue life from a place of, I want to survive it. That's the premise of self-help, is I just want to fucking survive and feel decent and having an emotional 401k that I'm blindly investing in. And maybe someday I'll have this, I'm going to pull out of the 401k investment and I'll be on some beach in some island when I'm 73 being like, damn, those 73 years were bullshit, but now my obese body's sitting on this beach. I'm a fucking beached whale because I never took care of my body, and I'm so jacked up on antidepressants that I don't even feel. Yeah. I can't even feel the sand I'm laying on. I can't even feel the water. It's like you can't even appreciate this whole thing. And it's a mirage, man. Yeah. It's all a fucking mirage. So it's like, how do you stop investing in that 401k into an idea that'll never manifest? It's like, how do you find significance right now? How do you do that right now? So it's like, I mean, you and I could fucking continue to brutally murder this dead horse that's been dead the whole time. So it's like,
it's true though. I mean, what you're saying, it's what you find about life a lot of times. The answer is not so incredibly dense and like hard to find. It's not like it's something really simple.
Yeah.
It's something really simple where you could, like, if you could just be, like you're talking about, you could just be, just go into nature, just be.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. We can't do that. We're building our lives so we don't do that. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about is like, yeah, you know what? You could just go sit by yourself and just learn like what it's like to let your thoughts just drift away.
Yeah.
And like that's as simple as it needs to be. It's like we were talking about it last week, but when I was in the float tank, and I just got in there, right? And like as soon as I'm sitting there floating in the dark, you know, no sound, no nothing. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, man. It's just like, it's like all of a sudden, it's like my conscience turned on. It's like, what's up, Ryan? Thanks for finally tuning in, dude. Like, it's time we need to talk about some things going on. But it's scary to do that, man. Yeah. Like, it's scary in a sense that we build it into this. It's like a paper tiger, is what it is. But you realize there's nothing to be scared of, man. Yeah. And that's part of just calling it out for what it is. To boil it down is like, why are you so scared, man? You're gonna be scared your entire life unless you face that thing.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's the way, it's helpful to know, like sitting here talking now, when we've seen people that have walked the path, that help you realize that that tornado off in the distance that you're running from and trying to find shelter is something that is not going to harm you if you go into it.
No.
And that's the thing where it's, if you get anything from what we're talking about, it's that you want to treat your life in the sense that you only get to be you one time.
Yeah.
As far as you know, you're given whatever you're given, whatever things you've been dealt in your life. We've been fortunate enough to be living where we are, having healthcare and things on our life, right? But there's people that have a lot worse. That could be like, well, you don't know about this. Well, it's like, I don't know. And I can't imagine, because I'm struggling with a pretty privileged fucking life right now. Yeah. That's what I'm struggling with. It's, it shows me the depths of Ryan. It's like, oh, you're struggling. Yeah. You've had parents that love you and you have a decent job and like you're, healthy family. Yeah. And it's like, but that's the thing, man. I want someone who's lived a much harder life to be able to step into this, to be able to teach me selfishly. Yeah. And that's what you want, because like you realize, right? And to go back to Tony Robbins, right? Like I genuinely love that dude. Absolutely. And what started Tony Robbins was a speech teacher who saw something in him and was like, dude, go to this speech competition, man. I think you have a gift. Yeah. Right? And that's what we want to do for other people. Is like, there's a gift that each person has that they could bring to the world that we're ignoring. Like, how many Tony Robbins, how many Einsteins, how many Elon Musks are we missing because they're trapped? Yeah. You know what I mean? We have everything at our disposal to figure out all of our problems. We just choose not to because we want to survive, like you're talking about. And I don't want to survive no more. We're either going to figure this shit out or we're going to sink this space rock. Absolutely. And there's going to be a few people that leave this space rock, but this space rock is dying and we're killing everything on it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say the space rock thing, because the imagery with our collaborations with the art and the graphics on symbolizing each concept we're talking about is, there's an astronaut that's kind of our mascot, quote unquote, with the fed up journey we're on. And I was thinking about this week a quote in a prior to being a carpenter, I was a chef, and we're a close buddy of mine, Justin, and I were getting ready for a food competition, and someone was interviewing us for like going into it, like, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about going into this competition? And I promise this will make sense. It has to do with space somehow, not space ice cream, but like it'll make sense. But the quote, being as incredibly mature as I am, I was trying to think of the most immature thought I could to give to this, because it was we were getting interviewed, like the whole thing was like a fucking joke. Like I'm like, why are we getting interviewed for how we feel going into? I'm like, as a joke, I said, like, honestly,
I got very serious because I was seriously serious about not being perceived as serious and sarcastic. And I said, honestly, I was like, I don't want to speak for Justin, but I feel like we're just a couple of lactose intolerant astronauts trying to find our purpose in the Milky Way galaxy. You know, and it's a play on, obviously, what the fuck does a lactose intolerant astronaut have anything to do with the Milky Way like what I'm like, it's a play on words, homie. Like, you know, it's like, but that's the whole thing, is like, I was thinking about us as being a couple astronauts, and that lactose intolerance in our souls is recognizing, like, we got to get the fuck off this space rock, bro, because we're dying. This thing, we're having all these allergic reactions through social media and all these false realities. Like, we got to get the fuck out of here and go find, like, the antidote. Like this, we got to go find some lactate. You know what I mean? We need to find something that doesn't have the lactose in it. And in this Milky Way galaxy, it's like, is the purpose found here, or is the human experience? Do we just have an intolerance to digesting purpose? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something that we're on this metaphorical space journey to find verbally through conversation, and hopefully future guests to just go with each other in this intergalactic space of the soul. And in the same way space is ever expanding, it's like we will expand to the day we die, to the degree we put energy into it.
That's right.
So I honestly, man, I don't know if at any point we're gonna figure anything out. I really don't. And there's gonna be times in our dialogues that I'm gonna feel so painfully lost in space, you know, metaphorically, with the topics. But I think what's important is to not just establish the all of the symptoms of the cancers that are killing us slowly, in terms of our pursuit of significance, but what for you, just to kind of like evolve into more of a closure place in the conversation, like, where are you right now, and what are you doing right now outside of this dialogue we're trying to establish every week? Like, what do you do subjectively to really find significance and manifest that every day? Like,
sure.
As knowing you don't know the purpose of significance and all things involved.
Yeah.
What are you doing to fake it till you make it?
Oh man, that's a good question. So, to be very new agey with my response, and very Eckhart Tolle-esque, I really try to be present, right? And I say that, it just sounds so cliche.
Yeah.
But like, I like when I get home from work, or when I'm even at work, right? Like, I'm focused at what I'm doing, and like what parts that bring significance to me is like especially when I could go home, because it's the easiest one to point out, right? Yep. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old right now, and like when I get home and they're just so excited to see me and they run up, it's like it brings me that feeling of significance of like, oh, they care about me, right? You know, but my significance comes when I could just be with them, and just like, they're just like so excited to see me, they just want to connect with me, they just love that. And like, if I could just let go of like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I want, you know, how all these different things that try to flood into that moment, if I could just part those for a second, and I could just be and say, you know what, this is awesome, I get to do this. Like, I've been blessed that I get to be a dad to 2 kids, and like, that to me is just like, when I look at it in that perspective, just fills me with like so much gratitude that like, I'm healthy enough to be a father, in a sense of like, you know, I'm not dying of cancer, or, you know, my kids are
must
sick,
be nice,
or I'm not mentally stuck somewhere that's keeping me from being with these people. You know what I mean? Yeah, I get it. But it's something where like it means something where it is my perspective helicopter, where I could just be and just be like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. And like, I get to do this. Like, I get this. This is a gift. This is a gift for me. Yeah. You know? And why that's the easy one to pull out. It's the same when I look at like getting to be a husband to Britt. Like, I get to do that. We have struggles that we're working on, like any marriage, but like, I get to be with this person who is freaking fantastic. Yeah. that is given to me by the grace of whatever is holding this stuff together.
Yeah.
And to me, that just fills me with like, you know what? It fills me with like, this is great. Like this is something that's cool. Like this is living Ryan Pottle's life fully in this moment. And I feel like that's the only way you could really gain significance, because any other way, it's almost like you're talking about. It's one of those things where it's like humility, where if you're chasing humility, you're never going to find it, because as soon as you're trying to be like, oh, I'm humble, look at me, I'm humble.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Purpose is similar. It like dances with nihilism. Yep. Where it's like, ooh, there's no purpose to anything. It's this dance.
Yeah.
And that's part of where I feel like the significance comes from for me, is just realizing that, yeah, there's part of this where I have no idea if any of this has any meaning or not. But like, I find meaning when I could just be and like choose to just be me. You know what I mean? Be me fully in a moment, because there's so many things that keep me from not doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I couldn't have put it any better, my brother. It's so beautiful, because it's not to get off on this whole Jung thing again, but it's like he talks about art, and the most powerful art is simple. And everything that we do should be sought from a place of seeking the most simple translation of whatever thought we're trying to express, because that is the true essence of humility, and not sugarcoating or complicating anything. When you're truly secure with something, you're trying to seek the most simple form of it, an expression. And I think through your expression of your life lived, you're saying the most simple thing to me, in terms of finding peace and significance, is recognizing the gifts I have as a husband and a father. And I feel the most human and the most peaceful when I'm actually, intelligent enough to be present in those moments and not get consumed with shit that doesn't matter. And I definitely applaud you for answering that the way you did, and because it's so honest, and it's clear that it's so at the forefront of your mind, because that's immediately what came out. And I think for everyone who does hear this, it's so important for you to recognize that wherever you're at is, like I said last week, it's where you're supposed to be, and recognizing that no matter where you are. And I think Frankl wrote, Man's Search for Meaning, and that book changed my life. Yeah. Because a gentleman who was literally in a concentration camp, Nazi Germany, like the most horrific side of humanity that has ever been lived, or lack thereof. And he diagnosed that you can choose to endure those things, and you can choose to have a perspective of how you feel no matter what circumstance you're in. And I'm probably really fucking and botching that up, but more or less the way I translate it is, and what was so powerful to me is to realize, like, I have no business complaining about anything ever in my life, because I was not in Nazi Germany, and I didn't see all of my family and friends go up in a smokestack. You know what I mean? So I'm not making light of that at all, but I'm being very serious. It's like, we will only have a short list of first world problems. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there are people being murdered and raped and sold into sex slavery and malnourished, and there's kids walking miles a day for water that is knowingly probably going to kill them, and they'll bring back a gallon of it, and that's all they have. You know what I mean? Yeah. And their stomachs are distended and they're dying. And it's so embarrassing to sit here and like complain about shit that we complain about, but at the same time, it's saying, this is the life I was given. Yeah. Like, I fucking live in a first world country, and there's a lot of things I'm not proud about that I complain about, but I refuse to not be a part of the solution in my own way. Yeah. Like, I'm fucking fighting for those kids. That's it. I'm fighting for those women, men in sex slavery, and bringing light to the fact that we are all dying of a need to find significance. And all of us have different degrees of barriers and hurdles to get through to find that. But from my life lived, and I alluded to my experience with my father, is that shit is my foundation and my power that I draw from to have the fuel to do what I do. So when I've been told like all these different things that I could be a victim by, it's like, you can either choose to be a victim by the toxicity that you've experienced in your life, or you can say, this shit gives me a fucking front row seat to understanding what meaning is, because I have had so many moments that had lacking significance. Sure. So and that's the Frankel mentality you can have every moment is I can find significance in anything if I choose to, or I can let the feeling that I'm supposed to feel because of this circumstance, I'm going to be weighed by that. It's like, fuck that. You actually can take ownership of your life to the degree that you can fucking choose to feel anything and choose to pursue anything on your terms.
Yeah.
But as always, it comes down to, is it just this nihilistic, subjective, like I create my own truth, or is there objective truth? And I think that's where religion has gone so many different directions, is trying to establish objective truth. You know what I mean? So, and that's what we're ultimately trying to find, is what is objectively true about significance, and how do we invite everyone from every texture, color, background, gender into the conversation to connect to a family of finding that significance together.
Yeah.
I want to be connected to every form of every human being possible, because I know I can learn from everyone. Every life lived has something to offer and give. And as much as I'm wanting to pour out my soul, I'm also selfishly wanting to connect with every version of every human, because they all have something so beautiful to offer to the family. And we're not going to be a healthy family, human race, until we're all fucking connected and loving and compassionately accepting each other for where they're at.
But that's it. I mean, that's it, dude. And that's the point of what we're talking about here, is we want to raise the scale on the side of significance, right? And have people tap into that, because we need you. We need these people. Like, we're sitting here saying not, well, what we're good as we are. No, we're saying we need you to figure this out. We need those people. We need everybody to figure this stuff out. You know? And that's the call for this episode. The call for it is like, take it back. Take it back. You know, as if we don't, we're screwed, you know. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic. It's just the writing on the wall.
It's reality. It's all math, man. The equation is, we keep doing what we're doing equals fucking suffocation. So we're trying to rework some numbers and get back to, how do we all, as adults that are dying and suffocating in society and culture, how the fuck do we throw on our little, spandex, little onesies and get back in the mud and wrestle together and kumbaya some shit? You know what I mean? Because that's what we need to do, is learn how to approach each other from compassion and acceptance, instead of judgment and separation because of our differences.
That's right.
How do we highlight the differences as simply different? Therefore, it's an opportunity to connect on something that's different than what we are, which should be exciting. It should be exciting to be magnetized towards something that's different, because it requires us to be something we're not, which means we'll be in an environment to grow.
That's it. That's a good way to put it, dude. Well, I think we should wrap this up with, just that, is we want to be growing. We want that magnetism towards growth. And part of that next time is, I think we'll talk about pain a little bit, dive into that whole topic.
It sounds warm and fuzzy.
All right. Oh, what did you want to say about the art?
Yes. The graphic this week was, I think Ryan posted it on a couple different platforms, but to play off of the lactose intolerant astronauts in the Milky Way galaxy, there's a love and respect for hip hop and that culture and the voices they had in the 80s, and like when that got established. And Tupac is one of my biggest heroes in life, period. And he wrote a poem, The Rose That Grew from a Crack in the Concrete, and he talks about how, against all odds, someone who should not have evolved from the place in the misfortunes that he was born with, he evolved into, in my opinion, a very Martin Luther-esque role in his environment, his culture. Did he have a different message than Martin Luther King? Yes and no. I think he was fully who he was, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs through his art form to create change. And because of that, he got killed in the same way Martin Luther got killed. And I have infinite love for Tupac and hip hop and the culture and the medium of art that it is, and I think it's definitely evolved and changed from where it originally started. But there's no reason why a white guy from Texas, can't help us get back to the hip hop roots. No, but in all seriousness, is Ryan and I collaborate on these art graphics, and we want them to potently invite you to recognize, like, we are in a family together, and there's not a more powerful way he and I can do that than like having this original artwork and having actions speak louder than words, and in a effort to connect the family community through the social media that we're connected to. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but whoever's listening, if you would give us the honor of, if you're so inclined, to write to us, or I don't even know what that means, dude. Whatever.
Email.
Yeah, I
whatever.
don't. Whatever that means. If you reach out to us and tell us your story or how you were impacted by the discussion we're having, and maybe something personal about your reality, we will every week or every conversation, the art that we come up with and collaborate, we will send you the original piece of art to you, and we're both going to write something to you about how your message impacted us and vice versa. So please, if you want to take the time, I promise you the original art that we create will be in your home, hopefully empowering you, and put it up on your wall somewhere, and it'll help remind you that you're not alone, and that there's a couple dudes in Portland, Oregon wanting to connect to you. So
awesome, dude. I think that will be something that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to respond. We're not going to share with anybody.
Nope.
So it's personal, just mainly, for us to see, grow from selfishly, because that's, that's what this is all about, right? We just want to, we want to grow selfishly.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well,
Anyway.
and together as a family.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway. All right. Well, to pain next week.
Yeah. Should be nice and painful.